Hi, I'm Nancy Cason. Don and I have been at St. B's for 27 years now, and we are part of a life group that is reading and discussing the book, The Color of Compromise. I highly recommend it. We've learned an awful lot about our country's history with racism, but perhaps most importantly, our discussions have prompted an exploration of our own histories. And so here is mine. I grew up in the Deep South. I was born in Birmingham, and when I was 13, we moved to Jackson, Mississippi. The neighborhoods we lived in, the schools we attended, and churches we were part of were all strictly segregated. I was not aware of the deep racism that existed in my world until I think I was in middle school. My parents modeled a respect for all people. I certainly never heard them make a racist comment, and certainly knew that none would be tolerated in our home. It was probably in middle school when I first heard racial slurs from peers, and even on occasion from parents. I remember how shocked I felt at such hateful language, but I don't remember challenging anyone's views on the subject. My early awareness of racist attitudes was so at odds with the one and only close relationship I had with a person of color, and this was the woman who worked in our home. In the 25 years that I knew her, it was her incredible kindness, her great sense of humor, her unconditional love that taught me volumes about the shared humanity between black and white people. My full awakening to racial justice was during my high school years in the mid-60s. Jackson was the focus of peaceful civil rights protests that were met with horrific violence from white supremacist groups such as Mississippi's White Knights of the KKK. It seemed all around us that black and whites were being attacked and murdered. White liberals were intimidated. Churches and synagogues were bombed. Crosses were burned in the front of people's homes. Everyone was afraid, and to speak out seemed to be very dangerous. But there were those who did, and it was their voice and actions that challenged me to fully embrace and speak up for racial reconciliation and social change. These were young black and white student activists, just a few years older than me, working in Jackson, who risked their lives by participating in marches through our city, freedom rides to our bus station, lunch counter sit-ins downtown, and door-to-door voter registration. But I'd like to tell you about 4 young women who were part of Jackson's Civil Rights Church Visit campaign under the leadership of Medgar Evers. Although this group had been barred from entering white churches on previous Sundays, they remained confident that engagement in or with white Christians could bridge the divide in our city. And so the Sunday after Medgar Evers was murdered in front of his Jackson home, 4 black women quietly entered our downtown church and were shown to a pew by our ushers. I remember looking back at them and how uncomfortable and nervous they seemed, understandably, and noted that they chose not to go up to the aisle for communion. But at the end of the service, our priest greeted them warmly and invited them to return. And one of these young women later recalled in her book that for the first time, she began to have a little hope. The Color of Compromise points out that there have been so many junctures in America's history when the right moral choices could have prevented the deep entrenchment of systemic racism. We seem to, again, be at a tipping point in our history, and I am beginning to have a lot of hope. I hope, too, that you'll join in our discussions of the color of compromise and to become a part of the beloved community. Thank you.